Lecture quiz 14 is about the concept of union dissolution. That's the formal or informal end of a romantic partnership for this course. These patterns are deeply tied to how families form and evolve in the United States, and they reflect broader social, economic, and cultural shifts. Let's be clear about what I mean by union dissolution. It can take many different forms. First, there's divorce, the legal end of a marriage, which most of us are familiar with. Then there's cohabitation breakup, which is the end of a non-marital relationship. These are becoming more common as more couples live together without marrying. And finally, there's widowhood, the end of marriage due to the death of a spouse. Each of these experiences carries different emotional, social, and economic implications, and they reflect how our ideas about relationships and family continue to evolve. American families are changing. Divorce rates peaked in the 1980s and have since leveled off, but that headline hides a more complex story. Among young adults, especially those with college degrees, divorce is actually declining. Meanwhile, divorce among people over 50, what's called gray divorce, has doubled since 1990. At the same time, marriage itself is becoming less common. In 1996, over 55% of Americans were married. By 2023, that's dropped to 46%. Meanwhile, cohabitation, living together without being married, has more than doubled. You can see this shift clearly in Figure 1 from the Penn Wharton Budget Model 2025 report, which, by the way, is an optional reading for this week. And it shows the steady decline in marriage and the rise of cohabitation over nearly 3 decades. These trends reflect changing social norms, again, economic pressures, and clearly the evolving expectations about relationships and family life here in the U.S. Your first quiz question is, which of the following best describes the trend in divorce among young adults in recent decades? Divorce rates have declined, especially among college-educated individuals. Cohabiting unions are more common than ever, but they are also less stable than marriage. Most of these relationships end in separation rather than marriage. While cohabitation is sometimes seen as a trial run for marriage, it doesn't always lead there. This instability isn't evenly distributed. It varies significantly by race, education, and whether children are involved. For example, Figure 2, Panel B from the Penn Wharton report shows that cohabitation is most common among individuals with lower levels of education. And in Figure 3, the same panel, the analogous Panel B, shows higher cohabitation rates among Black and Hispanic individuals compared to white and Asian groups. These patterns suggest that cohabitation plays different roles across social groups, sometimes as a step towards marriage, and other times as a long-term alternative to marriage shaped by economic and cultural factors. Your next quiz question is, which group is most likely to experience cohabitation rather than marriage according to the data? And those are individuals with lower levels of education. Let's shift to another major life transition, widowhood. Thanks to longer life expectancies and fewer people marrying or even remarrying, widowhood is actually declining, but it's still more common among women who tend to live longer and often marry older men. Like divorce, widowhood can bring significant emotional and economic challenges, especially later in life. What's interesting is how older adults are responding. In this Figure 4, Panel B from the same report shows a clear rise in cohabitation among adults aged 65 and older. This suggests that many are choosing companionship without remarriage, perhaps to maintain financial independence or avoid legal complexities. It's a reminder that family structures in later life are also evolving, shaped by both demographic trends and personal priorities. This reflects further that today's marriages are what sociologists call individualized. That's right, that key term keeps on popping up all over. As mentioned a lot, Unlike institutional marriages of the past built around duty, tradition, or economic survival, modern unions are centered on personal fulfillment and emotional satisfaction. That makes them more rewarding, but also more fragile. If a relationship stops meeting someone's emotional needs, they're more likely to leave. We can see this shift in how people are forming families, here in Figure 5, Panel B. And this report shows that cohabitation is rising even among families with young children. That tells us that parenting and partnership are increasingly negotiated outside of traditional marriage. In short, family structures today are more diverse, more flexible, and more reflective of individual choice, as has been the narrative for most of this course. The question becomes, is decline of marriage inevitable? Not necessarily. According to the textbook and sociologists like Norval Glenn, the story is more nuanced. Today, marriage is often about love and personal fulfillment, very different from that institutional model of the past, but that shift brings new challenges. Glenn describes what he calls the marriage paradox. The fear of divorce can lead people to emotionally hold back. This reluctance to fully commit can actually destabilize the relationship. In other words, fear of failure becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Brown, your textbook author, and others suggest that the future of marriage is flexible, shaped by social and economic forces, personal choices, and emotional dynamics. It is absolutely a dynamic area, and one that's ripe for further study as we rethink what partnership means in today's world. Okay, I know this is probably the billionth time I've mentioned Andrew Cherlin this semester, but he really nailed it with the term marriage-go-round. He used it to describe the uniquely American pattern of frequent union formation and dissolution. Compared to Europeans, Americans are more likely to marry, more likely to divorce, and more likely to repartner multiple times over a lifetime. This cycle creates a lot of instability, especially for children who may experience multiple family transitions. This figure 8 from that Penn Wharton report shows projections through 2040, with marriage rates continuing to decline and cohabitation on the rise. It's a perfect visual for Cherlin's point. Our unions are becoming more fluid, and that has many big implications for how we think about family stability in the future. Your third question is, what does Andrew Cherlin's term marriage-go-round refer to? It is the American pattern of frequent union formation and dissolution. As we've seen, union dissolution, whether through divorce, separation, or choosing not to marry at all, is shaped by a mix of personal choices, structural inequalities, and cultural shifts. These patterns vary by age, race, class, and gender, and they have real consequences. This chart, Panel B from that Penn Wharton report, shows regression predicted annual wages by marital status and sex. Even after controlling for factors like education, race, and health, married individuals, especially men, earn significantly more than their cohabiting or single counterparts. That wage gap isn't just about individual effort. It reflects how family structure intersects with economic opportunity. Cohabiting men, in particular, earn far less than married men, suggesting that union type can influence, or possibly be influenced by, broader labor market dynamics. Understanding these patterns help us make the sense of the changing landscape of American families and why economic inequality and family instability often go hand in hand. As I sometimes do, I included your attendance question in the slide, especially since it's less than 10 minutes long. And in particular, I want you to consider this. Let's pause and reflect. What do you think has contributed to the rise in divorce and cohabitation dissolution? What do you think of what the book is presenting so far? How do these patterns reflect broader changes, if they do, in gender roles, economic pressures, or cultural expectations? Or perhaps you think they don't. Again, you can expect this to be in today's attendance question, and I will see you in class.